What About Vietnam? A podcast with Carrie Newsom. The series where Carrie talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam. Today we tackle a question that comes up a lot. Is Vietnam a family-friendly country? And does it cater to kids? I'm lucky today to be putting this question to my well-travelled guest, Suzie Slingsby. Suzie's had the privilege of travelling over many years working in the financial services and the travel industry. And while she's a busy girl, as she's a board member for a local credit union, I caught up with her in Lennox Heads and we had a good chat about her visits to Vietnam and how much she loves the country. Suzie has a beautiful daughter, Bella, and as a family, they've travelled to Vietnam several times. And she says there's really good reasons for that. I'd love you to welcome Suzie to the program. Hello, Suzie. Welcome to What About Vietnam?
Thanks, Carrie.
Look, great to have you on the show for many reasons, as I know you're a very well-travelled person and certainly done a few trips now to Vietnam. I know you also travel with your lovely daughter, Bella, who I think has got a birthday very soon. She's coming up to 8.
Certainly is.
Oh, God, that time went quick, hey? And when people think about Vietnam, possibly their first thought is not to think about it as a family-friendly or kid-friendly destination. But I'm glad to hear you think otherwise. So tell us a little bit about why you do think Vietnam is a family-friendly destination, and maybe give us some tips for our listeners.
Sure thing. I think there's one of those things with third world countries where sometimes people think they're a bit apprehensive about taking small children there. And I suppose there's certainly some countries we wouldn't take ours to either. However, Vietnam for us has always been one of those places since the first time we did take Bella was, what's not to love about it? You've got good weather, amazing food, the people are friendly, and it really gives them a good introduction of different cultures in a really safe environment. And I think, my daughter's probably not dissimilar to a lot of others, that sometimes they need a good dose of gratitude and getting an understanding of how other people live in very different circumstances is a good experience. And if you can do that and tie it in with some really fun stuff for them, it's a really good learning lesson.
And I think you're right. I think opening children's eyes to another culture and just seeing how the other half live is a big thing. I know I took my grandson last year and I thought, gosh, even just getting him away from a device was going to be a challenge, but he just embraced it. How do you think Bella goes? Does she love it? Does she get really into it?
Well, she does. She actually tells everyone her best friend is in Hoi An now, which is quite humorous because she's only met this little girl a couple of times. However, Anne apparently is her best friend. But that was even a joy every time they had seen each other on the last 2 trips. And Anne doesn't really speak any English, but those two can play for hours and have a really good time. And somehow, I suppose, they speak a language that they both connect to and can have a great time together.
And do you think Vietnam, as I said, I think you've been there about 3 or 4 times, you mentioned. Do you think it's kind of grown or adapted more to the foreigner to bring children and made it a little bit more family friendly and a little bit, I know they've got a lot more attractions that cater to children these days. Do you think it's changed in that way?
Yeah, I think the last couple of trips I've noticed that, with some of the theme parks and, some of the facilities that are a bit better for children as well. The people have always been very friendly and that's great. I suppose the only thing for me that hasn't really changed is probably the traffic, but your children get used to it. Yes. I think that's probably the scariest thing out of any of our trips is, trying to cross the road, particularly in Hanoi. But I think the more you go and the more they're exposed to it and they get a bit of common sense about it and they understand, It all works. So
Yeah.
I think Vietnam's doing a good job of trying to have something for everyone, and children are definitely getting catered for in that mix.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So, do you have any kid-friendly advice for parents? Things they need to just be aware of. I mean, sometimes the food is an issue. Sometimes, yeah, as you say, it's the getting around bit or the getting across the road bit. But any advice for parents traveling with families that that would be useful?
Well, I think, well, our daughter can be a picky eater at times, that's for sure. But we never found a meal where we thought, hang on, there's nothing here she can eat. Whether it was, chicken fried rice or whether it was something that they had catered for. You will find a lot of places there's Western food as well, if that's what you want.
Yes.
But there's not too many kids that wouldn't eat rice or a spring roll or some
Chips.
chicken or chips or something like that. So we didn't have a problem with food. And there was also like some really fun treats as well, like in the night markets where they make hand-rolled ice creams and things like that. To Bella, that was a highlight, having those things. And they're actually not as naughty as the treats that we have at home. So
good to know.
That's my excuse because I was eating them as well, but yeah, it was delicious.
And I know when you're talking about the night markets, I think there's one that kind of has this effervescence that comes off. It was like, did you see that one?
I tried those ones.
Yeah, I know my grandson tried it, and like I think he had that brain freeze. He got brain freeze because it was so cold, but because it was so, the evening was so hot. It was like he said, I'm eating every drop of this because I want to cool down. And I went, okay, go for it. Yeah.
It's a bit like that liquid nitrogen you get in nice hotels, but you're buying it on the side of the road with other bits of fruit. So I did have a few pieces and I was like, oh, well, yes. Yeah. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
It is. It's all part of the experience, exactly. So if Bella or, she's got a top 5 things to do, or could you share those with our listeners? Now this is now I'll ping this for under 10-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go for it. Give us our.
Okay. Well, I did actually ask Bella to give me the top 5 of some of her trips, and some of them surprised me. But
there you go.
I think they're across the board for a lot of people who find this fun. Right at the top of her list was actually riding a water buffalo, and it was
I would not have. I would not have guessed that at all.
Well, let's just say the video of me on the water buffalo has been deleted, but I would say that is quite a good one for all ages. But somehow Gary found this sidecar company where you can actually get the motorbike with the sidecar. Now, I was quite nervous about this because I'm a bit of one of those straighty 180s when it comes to safety all the time. And I was like, oh, is this going to be safe enough? However, we all had helmets. We had the 3 of us on the bike. So Gary was on the back behind the driver and Bella and I were in the little sidecar. We had a motorbike that was like the guide who was in front of us for the traffic. So it was a really nice adventure, and they took us out through the rice paddies, and we somehow ended up where these water buffalo were, and we all got out and they had a man on the water buffalo, and one by one we all had a ride through the river. So it was very
I do remember
memorable.
the photos. Well, there you go. Sidecar,
that was up there. Sidecar with the buffalo was right up there. There was a theme park called Vin Pearl Land, and it was just out of Hoi An on the way to Da Nang. And you turn up and it's like a Disneyland, but with very few people and for about 1/10 of the price. I can't remember exactly. In my mind, I'm thinking about $30 or something. It was not expensive. There was 0 lines. We thought, I think at the time we went there, she might have only been 6 or 5. I can't remember, maybe 6. And we thought, a couple of hours, then we'll leave. After 8.5 hours, the hotel was actually ringing us up to say, do you want the driver to come yet? So we had to pretty much spirit her out of there. But they had everything. There was a water section. There was a zoo. Like they had lions,
they have a safari park.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Safari.
So we were feeding giraffes. Then we had the roller coasters. Then they had also, I'm not a huge gaming fan, but included was this indoor gaming centre fully air conditioned. So if you need to escape the heat, the parents can sit in there and have a drink, and then they can play on some stuff. So that was a huge highlight for her.
Okay.
Another one that came in, water puppets. And I believe it's in a number of places, but we did see that in Hanoi. And that was really spectacular, actually. And
I think they're beautiful. I highly rate them.
And it is back to the olden days a bit, isn't it? It's not the most over-the-top production that you've seen, but it was really well done, and that was very high on her list. This next one is very random. She did some lantern making and really enjoyed that. So a lovely lady in the night markets, well, actually not in the night markets, in the old town, I think she was. And she had a beautiful stall, and so she would teach the children how to make lanterns and they could keep them. And I suppose on the making theme, another thing that Bella said in the same breath was there was a place where you could get little stamps made, and you could get stamps made of yourself, of your teacher, of anything that you wanted. You could just take.
Wow, stamp making.
Thanks. So they were actually gifts. No, I was actually
I think I know where the place is. It's in Hoi An, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's in the old town and in the market. So that's just places where you can get it done. She didn't physically get to make them, but she sat there with them, chose, and said what shape she wanted. And we did that for gifts, for bringing back for friends and for teachers. So that was a fun little thing to do too. What else has she got? She's got the buffaloes with the sidecar, the lantern and stamps, the theme park, the water puppets. And another thing she really enjoyed was bike riding. We used to, as a family, as we've said, the traffic can be rather hectic, but bike riding is definitely the way to get around in a lot of places. So we'd get up early in the morning, get on our bikes in whatever shape and form they were. And luckily, the hotel in Hoi An had good bikes, thank goodness, and all the brakes worked. So we would go out cycling down the road. She thought it was quite hilarious watching me on a bike going down the road.
Yeah.
And we'd go exploring and out with the villagers and go and have coffees. And that was a highlight to our day. I must say, as it got a bit busy during the day, we didn't sort of venture on bikes as much. We went to foot or taxis. But just going out and seeing the countryside, and sort of knowing that you could be part of the craziness and the traffic and be part of it. That was really nice.
And you can certainly, in some parts of Hoi An there, those little tracks are the only way you can get on those tracks and go as far into the paddy fields and, really experience the local farmers at work like they've done for hundreds of years. The only way you can really do that is on the little bicycles. Some are motorised. Have you seen the motorised ones?
Yeah, we have. We
just I think that'd be me.
Yeah, no, we stuck to the good old-fashioned pedals.
Oh, good girl.
So that was really good. But, I mean, it just seemed there's so many things. It was actually quite hard to get her top 5 because there's so many impressive things, like that is an impression show. That's another
the Hoi An Memories show, yes.
And there's thousands of people in that production, and you think,
yeah, it's spectacular.
It's not expensive. It's such a show, and you think, where else could you go and see all of this for this price?
Exactly.
That was in there as well, but that sort of rounds out her top list.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, so just to finish up our session, Suzie, just on, I guess, preparing for a trip to go away. I mean, what would you say is a good length of time to kind of package everything in and do everything you want to do, and good space of time to spend in Vietnam with the family? How much time should people allow, do you think?
Well, I'm one of those people that likes to enjoy your holiday, and I know it's not a hugely long way to go, but I would think you probably need 2 weeks at least, because don't forget, depending on the time of the year, it can get really hot and your kids can get really exhausted. So we always made sure there was a part of the day where we were just swimming by the pool. And depending on the heat of the day, whether it was raining or whatever, but I must say that's a top tip as well. Make sure you have a pool, because you will definitely use it a lot. And it's nice for parents to have a cocktail by the pool while their kids are having a swim. But I did find one time we were there in July where it was very hot, and Bella just was exhausted. We'd go out and do something for a couple of hours, and then she was actually sleeping during the day. She was just so
Yes.
exhausted. So just make sure you give yourself time. But I wouldn't rush it because there's so many places to see.
Thanks very much, Suzie. It's been great to have you on the show. I look forward to talking to you again about maybe some other experiences and exploits that you've had in Vietnam.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?